I was being brought to set in a wheelchair. Like, I couldn't walk that far. I had to tell everybody because I needed help. You know, I needed someone to help me stand, and I needed someone to help. I needed someone to help me to get there. The most important person in this world is my daughter. You are my everything.
Christina Applegate didn't just disappear from Hollywood. She was pushed out by something far darker than illness. Her final TV role is gone, her last film canceled, and the truth about what destroyed her career isn't what the public thinks. The real story goes back decades to the trauma, the secrets, and the decisions she never wanted exposed. And it's only getting sadder. The most important person in this world is my daughter. Those were Christina Applegate's own words, and they reveal more than most people realize. From the outside, she was born into Hollywood privilege. But her life didn't start with comfort. It started with survival. She was just 3 months old when she was placed in front of a camera for the first time. Not because of fame or dreams, but because her mother couldn't afford childcare. By 5 months, she was in commercials. By kindergarten, she had already joined the Screen Actors Guild. Her mother, Nancy Pretty, was a struggling entertainer juggling auditions, performances, and single motherhood. Christina didn't grow up watching shows. She grew up on the sets, crawling in the wings, fed candy to stay quiet during takes, coaxed on stage to fill space when no babysitter could be found. Hollywood wasn't a choice. It was a condition of her survival. And that's where the first fracture in her story began. Because long before illness ended her career, Christina was being shaped and damaged by a system that never cared if she was ready. Christina's big break didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a trap she couldn't escape. At just 15 years old, she was cast as Kelly Bundy in Married with Children, a role that would make her famous across America. The show exploded in popularity, running for 11 seasons, and turned the Fox network into a powerhouse. Audiences laughed at the blonde jokes and the skimpy outfits, but behind the character was a teenager drowning in pressure. While most girls her age were worrying about homework or school dances, Christina was memorizing scripts, attending rehearsals, and being told exactly how she should look. Off camera, the damage was already taking root. When she was only 8 years old, a neighborhood boy called her fat. It was just one word, but it stuck like a knife. By 15, while filming one of the biggest sitcoms on television, her mother signed her up for Weight Watchers. She began cutting food out of her life like it was the enemy. Some days, she ate only 5 almonds. If she ate 6, she would cry and refuse to leave the house. At just 110 pounds, her mother didn't ask if she was okay. She asked, "How'd you do it?" She was smiling for the cameras while starving herself in silence. The world saw her as a teenage star on the rise, but they couldn't see the disorder that was quietly consuming her life. Her fame was rising fast, but her body was collapsing in secret. While fans adored Kelly Bundy, Christina was battling an eating disorder that followed her for decades. She didn't talk about it publicly until 2024, long after the damage had been done. She said the pressure to be thin wasn't just industry expectation, it was survival. In her mind, being skinny wasn't about beauty. It was about being allowed to exist. She remembered wanting her bones to show, not because she thought it was pretty, but because she believed that was the only version of her that Hollywood would keep. And no one around her stopped it. Behind the scenes, producers, wardrobe teams, and even family members praised how good she looked, without ever asking if she was healthy. She became an expert at hiding hunger, pushing through filming, interviews, and photo shoots with nothing but fear and adrenaline keeping her upright. Even now, she avoids mirrors. She admitted she has to write notes on them just to stop herself from breaking down. The world saw confidence, but she saw someone disappearing. But the industry didn't wait for her to heal. It pushed her harder. By the time Married with Children ended in 1998, Christina was desperate to prove she was more than just a punchline blonde. She took roles in movies like The Big Hit and Mafia, forcing a new identity onto herself while still starving her body in silence. But her body wasn't the only thing breaking. Her personal life was about to come undone in ways that would haunt her for years. Just as her career was evolving, her personal life quietly shattered. In 2001, Christina married actor Jonathan Shake. To the public, it looked like a happy Hollywood match. But behind closed doors, the marriage was unraveling. By 2005, he filed for divorce, and in 2007, it was finalized with barely a word said between them. There were no public fights, no dramatic headlines, just silence and sadness. Christina kept the Los Angeles homes. He left with a Mercedes and a Buddha statue. Neither asked for support. It was less like a breakup and more like an emotional evacuation. But the heartbreak that followed was worse. While her marriage was falling apart, she had been involved with Lee Grivas, a photographer she met around 2005. Their relationship was intense but unstable, haunted by his worsening addiction. He had struggled with drugs since he was a teenager, and by the time they reconnected briefly in April 2008, his life was already in free fall. On June 29, 2008, just before his 27th birthday, Lee was found dead alone in his Hollywood apartment. A needle was near his body. He had overdosed on heroin. Christina was devastated. She called him an incredible person and said he would be missed beyond words. But this wasn't just grief. It was the second major emotional collapse in less than 3 years. And the most terrifying news of her life was about to follow. Only weeks after losing someone she loved, Christina got a phone call that would change her life forever and force her into a decision no one saw coming. In August 2008, just weeks after losing Lee Grivas, Christina got the kind of news that stops time. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at just 36 years old. There were no symptoms, no warning signs. It was found during a routine MRI, the kind she had been getting since age 30 because her mother had survived breast cancer twice. Tests revealed she carried the BRCA1 gene mutation, meaning her lifetime risk of cancer was sky-high, up to 87% for breast cancer and 44% for ovarian cancer. She didn't wait for fate to decide. Even though the cancer was only in one breast, she made the shocking choice to have both removed. A double mastectomy. She said she couldn't live in fear of it returning or spend the rest of her life going in and out of screenings. She wanted peace of mind, even if it meant losing a part of herself that Hollywood valued more than her health. The surgery worked. A month later, she was declared 100% cancer-free without needing radiation or chemo. People praised her courage, but they didn't see the grief behind it. She admitted there were nights she cried and screamed. She joked she'd have the best boobs in the nursing home, but the humor was a shield. Her identity, her confidence, her body, everything felt different. Instead of hiding, she used the pain to help others. In 2009, she launched Right Action for Women, a foundation that helps women at high risk get the expensive MRIs that save lives. The charity has since raised millions, not for publicity, but for women who would otherwise be ignored by the system. But just as she was finding her strength again, the next blow was already coming. Because while surviving cancer made her stronger, her body was about to betray her in a way she could never fight off. No matter how hard she tried, surviving cancer should have been her turning point. But instead, her body caught up with the life she'd been forcing it to live. Christina had always dreamed of performing on Broadway, and in 2005 that dream came true when she starred in the revival of Sweet Charity. It was intense, physically demanding, and emotionally consuming, but she refused to quit, even when her body started failing. On March 11, 2005, during a performance in Chicago, she broke the 5th metatarsal bone in her right foot. The injury happened in the opening minutes of the show, but she didn't stop. She performed another 20 minutes in agony until she physically couldn't continue. Producers initially announced the show wouldn't move forward to Broadway, but Christina wouldn't accept that. Just 2 days later, she convinced them to keep it alive. When she returned in April, she performed in tan medical boots hidden under her costumes. The audience had no idea how much pain she was in. The show opened on Broadway in May and ran for 279 performances, earning her a Tony Award nomination, a Drama Desk nomination, and a Theatre World Award. Everyone applauded her grit. No one realized the cost. Years later, she admitted the injury caused permanent damage. By 2013, she said she could no longer dance. The dream she had built since childhood, gone in one night. That Broadway run was supposed to prove she was more than a TV star. Instead, it became the moment her body began to break for good. But the world didn't know it yet, because the illness that would finally end her career was already quietly spreading through her body. By the time the world saw her smiling on camera again, her body was already giving her signs she didn't understand. In 2021, while filming the final season of Dead to Me, Christina Applegate finally got the diagnosis that explained everything she'd been feeling: multiple sclerosis. But the truth is, the signs were there long before anyone said the words out loud. During the filming of the very first season, she fell while running in a scene. She laughed it off, assumed she was tired, and kept going. But behind the scenes, more things started happening: numbness, fatigue, trouble with movement. She brushed off every symptom, thinking she just needed rest. By the final season, everything changed. She had to be taken to set in a wheelchair. She needed help walking, dressing, and moving between scenes. Opening a door became a challenge. Standing in place during filming took every ounce of strength she had left. And still, she finished the season. "I found out on a Monday after work that I had MS," she said later. "A disease I'm going to have for the rest of my life." The diagnosis wasn't just physical, it was emotional collapse. She said she no longer enjoyed living, no longer enjoyed anything at all. She gained 40 pounds, couldn't walk without a cane, and feared showering because she worried she'd fall. Some mornings, she didn't even try to get up. Her world began shrinking. Fast. She barely left her house. She stopped attending events. She could no longer do the things she had done since she was 3 months old, perform in front of a camera. But just when people thought she had already hit bottom, her health took a turn so humiliating and painful that even she could barely talk about it. Just when it seemed like her body couldn't betray her any further, things took a turn that was both humiliating and terrifying. In 2023, Christina Applegate went out to eat at a restaurant she trusted, and what happened next sent her to the emergency room over and over again. She contracted sapovirus, a brutal stomach infection caused by ingesting fecal contamination in food. The illness hit her hard and fast. She described the experience with painful honesty: intense diarrhea, violent vomiting, dizziness, and days of losing control of her body. She even had to collect a sample for testing, while still sick and shaking. At one point, She woke up covered in her own waste, not even realizing it had happened during the night. With MS already attacking her nervous system, her body couldn't fight the infection the way a healthy person could. She ended up in the ER more than 30 times for stomach issues, dehydration, and intestinal pain. She began wearing adult diapers because she could no longer trust her body to warn her. This wasn't just about sickness, it was about dignity slipping away in real time. But if the physical pain wasn't enough, the emotional fallout hit just as hard. In late 2024, she openly said, "I don't enjoy living." Not as a dramatic line, but as a statement of exhaustion. She talked about depression, about waking up in pain, about feeling trapped in a body that kept failing her. The internet twisted it into rumors of suicide watch. Headlines exploded, speculation spread, and Christina had to clarify that she wasn't suicidal. She was just being brutally honest about how dark life with MS had become. But the backlash that came next didn't come from illness. It came from something she said during one of the most heated political moments in America. As her health battles continued, a single moment online sent Christina into a storm she didn't see coming. On the night of the 2024 U.S. election, when Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris, Christina Applegate reacted in real time, not as a celebrity, but as a mother and a disabled woman terrified about what the future might hold. She went online and told anyone who voted against women's rights or disability rights to unfollow her. She said her daughter was sobbing. She said she was shutting down her fan page. And when someone made a sexist comment, she didn't hold back. She went off. But the internet doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive evenly. By the next morning, her posts were being screenshotted, dissected, and criticized. Some fans applauded her for speaking out. Others called her unstable, emotional, or out of line. Hours later, she tried to calm the fire, saying she had been sobbing, not angry, and just wanted to watch Bravo shows. But the damage was already done, and it wouldn't end there. Just a couple months later, in January 2025, wildfires swept through Los Angeles. Online trolls began mocking Hollywood. Saying celebrities deserved it, Christina snapped again. On her podcast, she defended the city, reminding people that most of LA is made up of regular families, not rich elites. Her co-host tried to ease her down, but she wasn't interested in being silent anymore. The backlash returned, with people split between supporting her and writing her off completely. But through it all, something bigger was coming. And it's the reason the word scandal is still following her name. Because everything Christina hasn't said, the trauma, the secrets, the buried past, is finally about to come out in her own words. And she's not holding back. After a lifetime of silence, Christina Applegate is about to do something she's never done: tell everything. In March 2026, her memoir, You with the Sad Eyes, is set to be released. And unlike the polished interviews and filtered headlines, this book won't be about protecting her image. It will be about revealing what really happened, the things she's kept buried since childhood. She's already hinted at what's inside. Abuse she never spoke about. Body trauma that started before she was a teenager. Exploitation in the industry when she was still a child. Abandonment, pressure, and survival disguised as success. Christina said the book won't be dramatic just to shock people. It will be honest, and that's what makes it dangerous. She knows names. She remembers what happened on sets, in dressing rooms, behind closed doors, before she was old enough to understand what was being done to her. And Hollywood knows it too. This memoir may not just expose trauma, it may expose people. People who profited from her.
People who ignored the warning signs.
People who built their success on the back of a child who didn't know she had a choice. Voice acting was supposed to be her safe way back, especially with the animated Married with Children revival. It was the one role she could still do with her health declining. But in July 2025, the project was quietly cancelled, with studio insiders admitting they didn't want the backlash that might come with her memoir's release. And now, one question remains. Are people finally ready to hear the truth? Or will the world try to silence her one last time? Because Christina Applegate isn't done. And the saddest part of her story might not be what already happened, but what she's finally about to reveal.